Welcome back into the Pig Trail Show. Hayden Herrera here. It's time for your Hog Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson. Kevin, we all saw that game in Newark on Saturday, Arkansas and Houston. Big time matchup. Houston takes it 94-85. There's a lot of ways we could start with this one, but I guess for you, I'll start with this. I mean, you can point to a lot, but what was the main factor in the Hogs just not able to get the win in New Jersey?
I think we're starting to see a theme. Arkansas's identity, the identity of this team, is more strong suited to offense, and they get a ton of question marks defensively. Even some of these games they've beaten some of these higher profile teams recently, actually in this month in Louisville and Texas Tech. Go look at the final scores in these games, and the scores are running up there. Arkansas, it was really exposed. I thought the inability to stay in front of drivers, guards. I was concerned about the veteran qualities about Houston's guards, but even the freshman, Kingston Flemings, had his way getting to the basket. I mean, it was just a defensive problem. Anytime you give up 94 points. Conversely, I mean, Arkansas's offense, has been good. I think one of the problems in this game, though, is when you have a 21-2 run that goes against you and you fall behind by 21 points basically midway through the first half. Arkansas did good to fight back and get within a 10-point deficit, but they could never quite get enough of a run to get with even a two-possession deficit. And that's really what you need to be in a game. At some point, you got to get there. Arkansas never could because they couldn't get stopped. So it goes back to the defense. But, Houston plays a certain brand of basketball where they really get into you defensively. If you're sloppy or careless with the ball, if you're not on point, they're going to make you pay for that, and that's what we saw in that run. But I think the other thing that I thought was interesting was, and I talked about it in my own post-game show last night on my Hogville Net YouTube hoop segment, I thought the officials really hurt Arkansas with some of the weaker calls against Brazil, got him out of the game early, one of Arkansas's top two players, and even Billy Richmond picking up his third foul on a no-contact play. Guy for Houston just slips to the floor. He gets two free throws on nothing. Richmond's out. Not only was he out the last 2 minutes of the first half, he didn't play the first 8 minutes of the second half because he had three fouls, and Calipari's now got to figure out when's the best time to get him in there because that next foul changes what Billy Richmond does. We've said so many times two things about this team. Brazil and Acuff are both vying for SEC Player of the Year type, all-league type performers. But the two hardest players and the two most influential players at both ends of the court consistently throughout non-conference play have been Brazil and Billy Richmond III. And so the officials took both of them out of the game for long periods. I mean, Brazil didn't play the last 13:49 of the first half. It was a 2-point game when he went out, and it immediately triggered into that 21-2 run when he was off the floor. And again, Richmond missing the end of the first half and then most of the first 8 of the first 10 minutes of the second half. So that's too many minutes, not only off the court, but consecutive minutes for your two biggest effort players. I'm not saying that's why Houston won. I'm not blaming the officials, but I think this might have been the complexion of this game would have been much different if not for effectively phantom calls erasing Arkansas's two biggest effort players on the season to this point.
Yeah, looking at, I believe Brazil didn't have his first field goal until, a little later on in the second half. He 21 minutes total for Brazil, 1 of 3, 5 points here looking at the box score. You mentioned it, when that Arkansas was down 21, 9:34 to go in the first. Then they start that comeback, and I totally agree with you. You really got to get it to, within two possessions if you're really going to really get that comeback mode going. But can they take anything away from that, that being down 21 to where they got it, back to single digits? Can they, the strengths of, did that show you anything in that run?
Well, yes, we've seen it. This isn't the first tough game Arkansas's played. It's the fifth and final one in non-conference play. We saw them fall behind against Duke and Michigan State by double digits. They got back and had chances to win those games. Calipari said in this one, unlike those two, he didn't feel like they ever had a chance. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is that Arkansas really never got within that kind of striking range where you feel like, okay, they get a real shot here. They couldn't quite get there. So my only takeaway is it's the first time we've seen them not get to a point where they could win a game. They trailed in both. They trailed by 10 points against Texas Tech in the first half, came back and won that game. Trailed for 32 minutes there, showed they could come back and win. Louisville put a real scare in Arkansas late in that game at home in Bud Walton. Arkansas did what it needed to finish that up with a 9-point win. This was the first time Arkansas was never really even down the stretch, and there's where the defensive concerns come from, because to give yourself a chance to get, they whittled it down to 8 or 7, I think was as close as they ever got after falling behind by 21. To get within that 2-possession margin, you got to get stops somewhere. You just have to get stops. And when Arkansas did get a few stops here and there, they'd go shoot themselves in the foot at the other end by missing free throws, or have some really bad ball handling that either led to a turnover or disrupted their offensive flow, where they didn't get a good look. Just so many missed opportunities. It was just one of those things where if you're taking away anything, Arkansas for the first time this year proved that, at least against one opponent, they didn't really have a path to winning.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying I think some of the positives about hanging in there played out in other games. And this one, we can look at it and say, okay, well, they didn't cave in and lose by 25 or 30. That's a consolation prize, I guess. But this is a top 15 ranked team, 14th in the country, and coming into this. And if you win that game, you're probably going to be in the top 10. I don't think there's a whole lot of consolation of in the way that, Arkansas didn't allow itself to get completely demolished. But by the same token, they were really never in a position to take this game over and win it.
Yeah, would have been a very nice quad one win on the resume. They'll have a couple more shots at those quad one wins in once SEC play gets going. You mentioned, Darius Acuff going to be a contender for SEC Player of the Year, no doubt. He had 27 points, 7 assists. I mean, another, he rises to the occasion. I mean, could he have done anything else? I mean, it's just one of those things where, he played great. He just didn't have the support.
Well, he also had 5 rebounds. You look at these games he's had consecutively, he's getting on the glass too. We don't talk about that because he's been so good as a distributor and as a scorer. He did have 4 turnovers. He's been really sound in that department as well. Houston that was a problem for Arkansas, especially early when that run took place. And it was really such an uphill climb after that against a quality team. Let's not forget a team that's a defending national runner-up, if you want to say it that way. And has had 5 straight wins now for Houston. But Acuff, he was game, man. I mean, all of Arkansas's guards had trouble defending. I'm not gonna cover for him there, but none of the Razorback guards really did a good job of preventing drives all the way to the basket. That was a problem. But Acuff, man, he showed up. There's other players we should talk about. Billy Richmond and his referee altered participation was a dog. I mean, he was one of those that was up for this challenge, and he ended up looking good statistically. And of course, Malik Ewan had his best game. If the free throw line is one we're going to look at and say woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
As badly as Arkansas was outplayed in so much of this game, and Houston led for 37 minutes. Arkansas, if it just makes its normal percentage of free throws, got a chance to win this game with everything else that didn't seem to go well. Arkansas ended up being competitive on the glass. Fast break scoring, that's a strength of Arkansas. Only 7 points there. Houston only 7, but that should have been a category Arkansas should have won, needed to win. The turnovers were really the glaring problem here when you look at the margin and points off turnovers. A plus 10 for Houston there. A lot of that was in that run. But some of the individuals, we can't not acknowledge Acuff. We can't not acknowledge Billy Richmond when he was allowed to play. And of course, Ewan, who has not played with a lot of force against this team, he really went after Houston, got some of their players in foul trouble, including Tugler, got him off the floor early in the second half. And then he just wished he knocked down some free throws, but 20 points, 9 rebounds, a couple of blocks. There are some positives. The one thing you want to see moving forward, you need Malik Ewan to continue to play with that kind of attack mode effort. We know he's going to go grab multiple offensive rebounds. We know he's got some nice shooting skill. I still want to see him be a little more aggressive when he turns into defenders of finishing. He had a couple of point blank layups where he got fouled and didn't finish through those plays. It wasn't like it was I mean, those were shots he should have finished off. He had another one in the second half, where he got in no man's land in the paint, got a pass just inside free throw line extended, no defender around him. And as he was turning to shoot, he released his shot before he got his head around and his eyes on the rim. So just as good a game as he had, just fine tuning some of those things so he can be even more impactful. There are some things you go back and watch the film where Arkansas can get better from this game and say, okay, here's where we lost it. But and maybe you were going to bring up some of these other individual performances, but when I look, I am encouraged by some of it.
No, absolutely. Still plenty more to talk about from this Houston versus Arkansas game. We'll get to it right after this break. You're watching the Hog Hoops Report with Kevin McPherson. Stick around. Back here on the Hog Hoops Report, Hayden Herrera alongside Kevin McPherson. Kevin, we've been dissecting this Arkansas versus Houston game that we saw on Saturday. I'm going to give you 3 players: Malik Thomas, Nick Pringle, Carter Knox. Didn't really dazzle on the box score. Out of those 3, which performance would you say you were most disappointed by yesterday?
I got to go with Carter Knox, and here's why. This is a preseason All-SEC second-team pick. And in so many big stage games this year so far, he's just not been able to play to his standards and to what he's capable of. What he showed us at the end of last year in the NCAA tournament when the stakes were as high as they get against quality opponents, and how he raised his game. And outside of Texas Tech, who he loves playing, win or lose, he's really struggled in these games. And you look at him, and this is Arkansas' second leading rebounder on the season, despite some of his other struggles offensively. 2 rebounds in 28 minutes. You see him offensively typically takes good shots and he's shooting over 50% from 3 on the season, just doesn't get a lot of attempts. Some of the 1 of 6 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3, and a couple of those threes aren't typical shots that he would take. They were outside of his range. He's one of those toe the line kind of 3-point shooters. Good ball movement. He's open. He knows the good shots to take. He'll pass on the ones that aren't there. So he forced a couple of threes that were really not in his comfort zone on the kind of 3-point shot that works for him. And then he was credited with only 1 turnover, but it felt like more, not only because of some of those shots, and a couple of them were rushed early in the clock. They weren't necessary. He's trying to get himself going. But he was so good last year at figuring out how to drive and use that big frame and either get to the foul line or finish. And he's losing his balance. He ends up small, kind of being small in those possessions. And he loses handle of the ball. There were a couple of times where he was the next pass and some good ball movement around the basket. He fumbled the exchange, and now he could get a shot up, and he's having to do something else, or he's not in sync much this season offensively. And even on the glass, you're saying, again, a big disappointment there. I just think it was Carter Knox. Certainly Nick Pringle, a veteran guy. You thought he was going to be an enforcer. You thought he would be playing with more force than he is. He was the bug and not the windshield in the 9 minutes that he played. And then Malik Thomas, a true freshman, we're seeing the ups and downs for him. As Acuff is turning a corner in understanding and decision making for the most part, we're seeing Malik now at a play, kind of on a roller coaster downward a little bit. We've seen it in his production in a few games, but against the way that Houston plays in that style, I thought that he was too careless with the ball, and this was a tough assignment for him. I will say this. He did get things going a little bit offensively there for a stretch in the second half. The game was a double-digit deficit at the point. Arkansas was just trying to find a way to not lose by 20. I mean, a 9-point loss looks better than 20, but all 3 of those guys, and I'm going to throw in, you didn't bring this name up, DJ Wagner. He had 11 points, but he hit 2 threes in the final 3 minutes, the last at 13 seconds. That was why Arkansas lost by 9 instead of 12. Mm-hmm. He had an off night too. 2 assists, 1 rebound, played 35 minutes. And he and Knox both really struggled with taking care of the ball. Each only technically credited with 1 turnover, but so many possessions kind of got out of sorts when Arkansas was just trying to get the ball back after those guys mishandled it and weren't locked in. I thought, again, DJ, when you look at it statistically at the end, scoring it and the efficiency doesn't look horrible, but a couple of cheap buckets, more than half his points in the last 3 minutes, when really at that point you're just trying to figure out what's the final score in a Houston win. I thought all 4 of them And I'll put more on Wagner and Knox and the disappointed part of it because they've been in this system. They were part of why Arkansas had big success last year, and they're still trying to find their way. And in a game like that, this fifth time you're playing quality, you're hoping that they got that they're more impactful than what we saw yesterday.
So we've kind of highlighted the ways that you know this game might have gotten away from the Razorbacks, and not that we haven't given any credit to Houston because obviously they're a very talented team. I think when I see this
Oh,
Houston team, they're a team that is really playing for their coach. They're a team that realizes they kind of let the national championship slip away from them last season. It just seems like a team super determined and a team you don't want to see on your side of the bracket come March.
yeah. I mean, it's a tough team. Look, their staff reached out to me today and asked me what my thoughts were. And after pushing back, I said, I hope that one official, the one that was involved in a lot of these things I had opposition to, I said, I hope y'all treated him to a night in Manhattan. I hope he got all the steak, lobster, and cocktails that his little heart desired. Or you've rushed him off to Hawaii, so he doesn't have to be, for a nice holiday vacation. He doesn't have to. So after jokes aside, I gave them credit. I said, y'all look like the best team, regardless of some of that stuff, in this particular game. And the Houston staff pushed back and said, "Man, some of our guys were hitting shots we hadn't been hitting, and it was perfect timing in a game like that." And sometimes that's just how it is. They're a really tough defensive team. Tugler's a unique force on that front line. He plays exactly how Kelvin Sampson wants it and dials it up. They got some 5-star freshmen. That's not the typical blueprint for how Sampson builds a roster, but those guys, two of them are given big minutes and big production, and one of them came off the bench and hit 2 big threes in that 21-2 run. It's just, if you look at Houston, they're one of the standards in college basketball in the last 5 years or so. And so you look ahead to the NCAA tournament. I don't care if it's November, December, January. The work they do, the quality they bring. You can look at it and say this is the kind of team that's got Elite Eight, Final Four kind of stuff later. You never know how it's going to play out. It's not necessarily going to play out that way. I don't know that this team is as good as last year's team that went all the way to the championship game and maybe should have beaten Florida. I mean, it could have gone either way there. But by the same token, it's a really good Houston team. No shame in losing this game. I think the things that Arkansas did that it could control, the free throw line. And it's not like Arkansas was anywhere close to the efficiency at shooting at the line this season. Just had a stinker of a game. Shot 10 more free throws and only made 2 more than the opposition yesterday. That was a big problem. Yes, Houston's going to force a lot of turnovers. Yes, they're tough. But Arkansas, knowing that's the assignment, some of the veteran guys being loose with the ball. I can understand some of the true freshman mistakes, but some of the veteran guys, I felt like there was some stuff there that was just, not dialed in. So some of this was really just Arkansas self-inflicted. We talked about that so much last year, the self-inflicted wounds. This Arkansas team doing better, taking care of the ball in the season, but yesterday, not so much. And again, credit Houston for some of that, but Arkansas made adjustments, didn't turn over as much in the second half, but then they couldn't get stopped. So it was always a whack-a-mole on what your problems were. And credit Houston for a lot of that. And it also acknowledged that Arkansas didn't really put its best foot forward in more ways than one.
Well, Kevin, now that gauntlet of a non-conference schedule is officially over. No disrespect to James Madison, who Arkansas will see after they get back from the break. But the schedule that had been hyped all preseason finally over. Michigan State, Duke, Louisville, Texas Tech, and now Houston. Arkansas goes 2-3. I guess time will tell. But how should we look back on this? I mean, it's one of those things where you hope that, or John Calipari hopes that this gets his team ready, for not only the SEC, but what's to come in March.
Yeah, we can be negative all we want about yesterday, and when we just did that, I did that. But in totality, Arkansas goes 2-1 in December against quality. They were 0-2 in November with chances to win both of those games. Your net is just fine. Your resume is just fine in terms of the body of work to where we are right now. James Madison, 8 days from now, you're done. You finish it up at Bud Walton Arena. Your non-conference 13 games, get to 10-3. And then you open SEC play at home against a good ranked quad one value in Tennessee to get things started. But I think the non-conference was a success. Yesterday was not, but as in totality, it was a success. Arkansas proved that it belongs as a ranked team. I still think this is a team that's top 15 quality. I thought going into yesterday, maybe even top 10 quality. So there's a lot of questions and a lot of steps that need to happen in a positive way for this team to really feel like it can be a contender in March. But we got a lot of basketball left. And again, a guy like Malik Ewan, if he's really, really ready to turn a corner, Arkansas's got to get more on the front line than just Trevor Brazile. And they've got to have more than one way to play. And being able to feed the ball inside to Ewan and let him work, he's just got to figure out a way to get more and more comfortable dealing with contact, finish off some of those contact plays, get back to making free throws. But I think this Arkansas team, this was a successful. Again, one more game to go, so can't completely put a bow on it, but get to 10-3. It's been a successful non-conference season for Arkansas. 2-3 in quad one games, no shame in that. 1-1 in true road, true home in that. So you lost the other two that were neutral site games, but Duke and Houston are top 10 teams. That's where Arkansas wants to be, and they're close. So I think it's been a success when we look at November and December.
Fair enough. All right. Well, yeah, we've got to wait till December 29th, a 7 p.m. tip against James Madison, a week from Monday. It's the holiday season. What are you going to do? You watch basketball? I mean, are you watching Christmas movies at this time? With no Hog game this week, what are you doing? What's your favorite Christmas movie?
Oh boy, A Christmas Story is one of my favorites.
All right.
It's a Wonderful Life. It's a classic. It's one of my favorite. They're all the other night. One of the claymations, the original with Fred Astaire. I think it was Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It's not the 30-minute version. I think it's like the hour-long show.
Okay.
And that was one of my favorites as a child. I watched. It had commercial breaks. I watched every minute of that while I was doing other things on my phone with basketball Twitter. But I was paying attention to it. You get Santa was adopted by I guess the Kringles, and he had the claws thing on his. I'm giving it too much of an answer on something you want me to keep simple. I couldn't do it, Double H. But this is one of my favorite holidays. How could it not be? And I like the Christmas shows. How about you? What do you fancy?
Yeah, I can be nostalgic too. I'm a 90s kid, so I have to go with the Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger in Sinbad. It is a absolute treasure. It just shows what parents will do to get their children toys during this crazy holiday season.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet. Kind of like save it as we get closer and closer to the 24th. So, Scrooged with Bill Murray. That one's a great one.
Great one.
Christmas Vacation, obviously. Elf. Yeah.
Oh.
So I've got
Christmas
plenty to
Vacation,
watch.
Classic. I love it.
No Razorback games, but we still got, plenty to watch on the tube. All right. Until that next game against James Madison, this has been your Hog Hoops Report. For Kevin McPherson, I'm Hayden Herrera. Wishing you all happy holidays, and we'll see you next time.